Hello, everyone. It's your pal Fromark here once again with another episode of Fromark Plays. And this time around, I'm going to be playing a ROM hack of a Sonic game. And what a ROM hack basically is basically it's a game that takes pre-existing assets in a pre-existing game and graphics and stuff, and redoes something with it. For those of you who are not familiar, and a lot of Sonic fans who really appreciate the series like to make fan-made projects or make ROM hacks or even make their own complete games from the ground up. And some of those are pretty neat, some of those aren't very good, but I love the Sonic community because, well, they're just so creative with this franchise and this series. Sometimes even more creative than Sega is. But yeah, this game is pretty neat because it takes basically the lost levels of Sonic 2, basically the levels that were deleted during the development of the game. And I like how before it was known to be called Sand Shower Zone, everybody called it Dust Hill Zone, and you can see that here. And that's not something I was aware of until recently. It actually was, but I think a lot of people were unaware of that until recently. But yeah, this is a pretty fun game, if I do say so myself. It's made up completely of zones that weren't in the final cut of Sonic 2. And this is one of the more well-known ones, although the only thing that ended up existing was a couple of graphical assets and a mock-up image. Some zones that are in this game were nothing more than names or a couple of rough sketches. Some zones actually were in development for a little bit, and I've always been fascinated by the development of Sonic 2. There's so many neat levels and so many things that didn't make it to the final game. I really feel like you probably could have made a whole second game out of cut content from Sonic 2. But yeah, this one here uses the Oil Ocean music, if you didn't already notice that. But yeah, there are several ROM hacks of Sonic games that are pretty fun, and there's one that I like called the S Factor. That one's pretty good. There's a Sonic 1 Mega Mix, which I don't think ever got finished, but there's a few versions of it out there, and those are pretty good. And then there's also Sonic 2 XL, where the rings turn into onion rings, and if you collect so many of them, Sonic gets too fat to move. So the rings become kind of a avoidable thing. Now, one thing about this game is that there are a lot of cheap enemy placements, cheap level design. Some levels, like Hidden Palace later on, most of it was already in a pretty final state before it was scrapped from the game. So most of that was reused for this game. However, a lot of stuff here was built from the ground up, and a lot of the enemy placement and spike placement and stuff can feel kind of cheap at times and make it very difficult to get through this game. Especially those quicksand bottomless pits there, here. They're here. But yeah, it's time for the first boss. And this boss battle reuses assets for the Aquatic Ruin boss. I know how to deal with this Eggman variation quite well, if I do say so myself, as long as I stay up here on the pedestals and just keep jumping away, and just like that, 8 bonks as per usual. Get that capsule there, free the animal buddies. And that's gonna do it for Dust Hill. But we're not done yet, folks. We still got a whole few more zones to go. So let's see what's next here. Yes, Rock Zone. Also, some people would call it Rock World Zone. Not much is known about this zone. This is a pretty neat looking level here in this fan design. This is pretty much, I guess, just the fans' interpretation of Rock Zone, as the only thing there really is to go off of for this zone in the development notes is one crude sketch of Sonic and a badnik next to him. So I don't think this zone ever really made it that far during the planning stages. I noticed a lot of the enemies and stuff basically brought over from Hilltop Zone for this game. Yeah. But yeah, this is a pretty fun little fan hack, even with the cheap enemy placement. Once you figure out how to get through it, like a lot of difficult and sometimes cheap games, it can be a pretty quick adventure, if I do say so myself. Now, this is a game, though, that I heard of... I think the first time I heard of this was when I found the Brain Scratch Commentaries playthrough. And yeah, this is Sonic the Lost Worlds, not to be confused with Sonic Lost World for the Wii U. I didn't get to play that for the longest time because I didn't have a Wii U, and without access to a Wii U on a regular basis, I didn't get to play Sonic Lost World or that terrible Sonic Boom game. So how do I know if it's terrible or not? But anyways, I did eventually get to play Sonic Lost World. Once I got my first gaming laptop, I was able to get a hold of it on Steam. I was surprised to find it on Steam. Steam from the steamed hams. But yeah, most of the time with the ridiculous enemies and stuff in this game, you'll find that I don't get to collect and keep my rings very often. But still moving along quite nicely. I do like that the music here is the Mystic Cave 2-player theme. However, in the prototype of Sonic 2, this music was used for Hidden Palace. I'm really looking forward to getting to Hidden Palace, though. That is my favorite scrapped level from the Sonic 2. From the Sonic 2. But yeah, I think whoever developed this fan game, or whoever did this, did a pretty decent job for the most part. I do like their interpretation of a lot of these zones. Although, the only one that really isn't too much of a... This is the only one really that's kind of just interpreted. There's not much to go off of. At least with Dust Hill, there was that mock-up image. This just has that rough doodle. There's a seesaw badniks there. I like those things. They're in Sonic 1 as well. I like stuff like that, being able to jump higher by just continuing to jump on that. I think I need to get up here. Yeah. It's almost boss time again. It looks like I will need that shield. Bonk. Bonk. I do believe the glitch in Hilltop Zone in the original Sonic 2 is still present in this game, so you gotta be careful with those lava badniks, because like if you jump on their heads at a high enough rate of speed, it'll soft lock the game. But yeah, with as much of a Sonic 2 nerd as I am, it's not even my favorite Sonic game. That still ends up being a toss-up between Advance 3 and CD. Although I think Advance 3 probably wins out just on the nostalgia factor alone, because I grew up with that one. Also, apologies if my voice is a little scratchy. I haven't really felt quite the same since I had the flu a couple of months back, but I'm still here and doing alright, and yeah, we knocked out that Eggman pretty quickly. Man, that was easy. Made that look like nothing. Anyways, more animal buddies have been saved. And let's see which zone is next. Ah, yes, the wood zone. I like this zone. I've played several different iterations of this, and I like every single one of them just because I like these graphics. I like the original music here. I like how they went with the music here that's in the prototype, which is an early mix of the Metropolis theme. I'm not sure whether this was intended for this zone or Metropolis, but I mean, it plays in both during the prototype. I like the earlier mix of the Metropolis theme a little bit more, just because it's got that Genesis twang in it. And it sounds quite... I mean, it's pretty much still the same song, it just different instrumentation. And it's one of the very few times you'll hear that classic trademark Sega Genesis twang in a Sonic game. Although that's mostly reserved for Spinball. Most of the other Sonic Genesis games don't really lean on that sound because they didn't develop those games with the GEMS sound driver. Which, man, I wish I could get my hands on a working GEMS sound driver. I can't quite figure out how to get it to run on my computer, but there are programs out there. If I ever figure that out, I will definitely use that in future music. I feel like I could definitely utilize it. I like that crunchy bam. There's just nothing else that quite sounds like it. Sounds quite like it. Yeah, during the development phase of Sonic 2, this is one of the zones that actually didn't get very far. There wasn't very much done. There was like a very partial couple of seconds you could wander through in Act 1, and then Act 2 is just a blank background and you fall to your death. Which there's a lot of empty levels like that in the prototype of Sonic 2. But yeah, I like forest-themed levels in my games. I like this one. This one looks really nice. And I said earlier about how Rock Zone's one of the only zones to really be kind of a fan-made guess. Well, the thing about that is there's also Winter Zone coming up in the playthrough. Although, the only thing that was really ever made of Winter Zone was just a recolored version of the Dust Hill image mock-up that we got. And there's a drawing out there somewhere that kind of looks like it could have been something. But that's going to do it for Act 1 of the Wood Zone. Keep things moving on. And moving on to Act 2. But yeah, the backgrounds are really neat. Two things about this... Well, I mean, two zones in particular I always found the most fascinating from the development of Sonic 2 were this and the Hidden Palace. Mostly, I think this one caught my attention more because there was less to go off of. There was less made of this zone. Which is really a shame. I feel like this could have fit into Sonic 2 quite nicely. I feel like all the cut zones probably could have fit into the game quite nicely. Although the City Zone, I don't know. That one probably could have went. I'm getting a little ahead of myself with some of these zones. I'm only in the third zone of this game. Do 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 do. But yes, I feel like the greens and the browns and the purples and the trees in the backgrounds, it all just looks nice. Oh, and this is a re-skinned version of the Oil Ocean Zone boss. Not really something I would think of for a forest level, but I mean, it works. And the procedure's the same here, you just gotta avoid the lasers. And then just bonk Eggman a few good times as per usual, and look out for those. And once again, he's gonna fire the laser beams, gotta look out for them again, and pew, pew. Oh, I got me that time. Bonk. And that, nope. There we go. That'll do it. I guess I'll see you next zone, Eggman. Free the animals. Which makes sense that they're squirrels and birds. It is a forest. Let's see what's next. Ah, yes, the winter zone that I mentioned earlier. And I do like that here it is kind of... Yeah, it kind of does stay true to the whole reskinned Dust Hill theme. And the cactuses were Christmas trees in the mock-up sketch. And I do like winter-themed levels. This one, it looks okay. I'm not as big of a fan of this one as I am most winter levels that I've played. I guess mostly just because of the absurdity curve. As you see, I'm just getting hit by stuff left and right. I'm just trying to make it to the end of each act here. I keep running into shenanigans. But I guess it's all good as long as I got some rings. Tails getting bonked off screen there. Not really off screen, I guess. Get my shield, see how long that lasts. And gotta look out for those. I'm not sure why the seahorse badniks are here. Of course, I recognize those annoying things from Oil Ocean. Ooh. Well, shield lasted longer than I thought it was going to. Ah, yeah. Should be close to the end of this act. Yeah, there it is. Run past the signpost. Ooh. Extra life. Which you get those every 50,000 points, just like you would in the regular game. I'd kind of like to look into maybe getting something like this on a custom-made Genesis cartridge, so I could play it on original hardware. I bet that would be fun. It would also be fun to not lose my rings every 5 seconds, but we can't always get what we want now, can we, folks? Alright. Just zooming through here, spinning around at the speed of sound. Man, I got hit with a somewhat brutal winter this year at the time we're recording this. A couple of months back, and even into March so far, we've had a bunch of freaking... Well, we haven't had a bunch of freaking snow, and March just started, so... But January, February, and even a little bit December, we've gotten a little bit more snow, a little bit slow down there when I scattered the rings. Ooh. But yeah, as much as I love winter, I really only like to experience it in small doses. Just maybe I wouldn't feel that way if I lived in it 24/7, like if I lived in Alaska or Colorado or something. But sometimes it's just a bit much to deal with when it gets early, or it gets dark really early, and it's super cold and I can't get out and do much. Of course, that's not really helped by my incredibly busy work schedule. Oh, bonk. Just gotta make it to the end of this act. Which I feel like the boss is just right around the corner. Let's see here. Ah, man. Frickin' seahorses. They'll get you every time. Well, maybe not every time. I got close there. Oh, well, that's okay. Something else got me. The music here is the Emerald Hill 2-player theme from the original game. It seems to fit well enough, I guess. And speaking of Emerald Hill, we get the boss from Emerald Hill this time. So this will be a pretty easy one. Well, I say that as I get hit. Bonk, bonk. Just gotta deliver a couple of more. Okay, there we go. Yeah, excellent. That is good stuff, folks. And hey, would you look at that? That's the end of part 1. And I guess with that, after rescuing the animal buddies, I will see you all in part 2, folks. Stay tuned.